Sri Lanka winning by 23 runs, concluding the tournament on a high, winning their 6th Asia Cup. Now, Sri Lanka's side were written off after a terrible start, the worst possible start to a tournament that they were hosting, to be down and losing the game against Sri Lanka with 10 overs to spare. Literally everyone wrote the team off. There was probably no hope in the Sri Lankan side, but then they had renewed sense of optimism and they continued their winning momentum after beating Bangladesh, and the game continued. The tournament was in their favor. Sri Lanka entered the final on a bit of a psychological front because they beat Pakistan in the final game of the Super 4 stage. Everyone, all the fans who packed the stadium, believe that Pakistan is going to dominate the final because they'll come back with a new plan, which they did. Sri Lankan opening batting struggled, and they were down to 36 for 3 when in came Mr. Rajapaksa. Now, they're not to be mistaken with their precedent. This one is a proper hero, Bhanuka Rajapaksa, and he stole the game, and that was a very, very crucial knock. I think the biggest change, game-changing approach, was when Haris Rauf bowled a decent Yorker to get an LBW appeal. Umpire turns it down. Rajapaksa was at 4, and then the DRS system, with a review, when it looked at it, it gave the in favor of the umpire's decision because it was too close. I mean, it hit the stumps according to the Hawkeye, but it ruled in the umpire's favor, and I think that's when things became turned to Sri Lanka's side. In T20 cricket, it's anybody's game, anytime, because no matter what the situation is, you're only one good partnership or one big wicket away. And luck was on his side because Shadab Khan dropped his catch twice. In fact, one of them was when Asif Ali had almost caught the ball, but Shadab Khan ran into him, and then there was a drop catch. And I think that's when things changed. They were 60-odd for 5 at the end of 10 overs, and then they added 100 runs in the last 10 overs, and that took the game away. I think 170 on a crunch game, a final game, too much. Pakistan started off okay, too, let's say, conservative at the start. Not the best of all approaches when you're chasing 170. 2 early wickets, and then they just never were able to get the momentum going. They did. It was only in the 13th over, I believe, when Iftikhar Ahmed lost his wickets, a rash shot, and that was it. And after that, it was just a middle order collapse, and Sri Lanka well capitalized. A couple of things I would point out, I think, audience can disagree, listeners can disagree, is when Sri Lanka were down at 58 for 5, that was the time to bring your spearhead bowlers and try to bowl Sri Lanka out, not wait for the last over. So that conservative approach proved expensive. And then on the run chase, I think not getting enough runs on the board in the first 10 overs, especially in a high-profile chase, because you're only 1 wicket away from panic mode, and you're only 1 partnership away from really stealing the game away from the opposition. That was a failed opportunity at the 13th over. And I think that was luck went through Sri Lanka's side, and well deserved. A great win for them.
Yeah, great win for them indeed. And plenty to think about from this game as well, now that the T20 World Cup is ahead of us as well. I think it starts next month, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, not that far away. Pakistan has got the home series against England, so they need to train for that because England is not an easy side at all. Disappointing for them. I think the fans were really passionate. I think they packed out.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like an 80% of the stadium's occupancy was Pakistani fans. They were literally cheering them on till the last over because they believe there's some late heroics expected. But no, Sri Lankan bowling was too good. Spin bowling department, looking at there's not many household names in the Sri Lankan bowling attack. Madhushankar did really well. He's a very, very welcome addition into the team. Hasaranga, he's the household name in the side. He bagged 3 wickets. And Liana Gamaga, he grabbed the big 4 wickets, and he grabbed the big players. I think for Pakistani side, they've got to question Iftikhar Ahmed's position in the side. They've got to question Fakhar Zaman, who's had a terrible tournament. And they've also got a question, Mr. Khushdil Shah, who only performed against Hong Kong and not against the other team. So disappointing indeed. But one person who really shone this tournament so far, and I believed he should have been the man of the series, is 19-year-old Naseem Shah, who did really well, who's the hero in the game against India, hero in the game against Afghanistan, did really well, got the side to I'd say fortunately qualify for the finals. Let's listen to Naseem Shah, because I spoke to him and he did not want to do the interview in English. He understands English, he speaks a little bit, but he said, look, if you're going to do a radio interview, I'd prefer that I answer in Urdu. So he'll say, I asked him, the first question I asked him is about how he feels, and this is what his answers are. I'll translate them after the end of the clip, but I think if you're a Pakistani fan, you'll obviously understand it. So this is Naseem Shah, and I started off by asking him about how he feels as a 19-year-old to do so well in the game. Oh, thank you very much for joining us, Naseem. Let's start off by talking about it's a dream debut for you for an international level. You tried to play some game, getting those early wickets against India, starting off on a very high note and getting those 2 sixes to get through. How do you personally feel about such a debut at an age of 19?
बिल्कुल मेरे लिए बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट था कि मेरा जो वाइट बॉल का करियर का आगाज़ था वो अच्छी तरह कर सकूं, और अल्लाह का शुक्र है बहुत अच्छी तरह किया, क्योंकि जो मेन बॉलर था टीम का शाहीन वो अनफिट हुआ, और मेरी यही कोशिश थी कि मेरे पास अपॉर्चुनिटी है नई बॉल की, टीम के सारे लोगों की उम्मीदें हैं, और मैंने कोशिश की कि मेरा जो वाइट बॉल है उसमें अच्छा इम्पैक्ट आनूँ, और अल्लाह ने उसमें मदद की है। और जो आपने बात की चिक्को की, एक ज़बरदस्त फीलिंग होती है, क्योंकि इस टाइम पे जब आपको किसी की उम्मीद नहीं होती कि हम अभी जीत सकते और आप मैच जितवा सको, और इसमें सारा जो है ना, बस मैं ये कह सकता हूँ कि अल्लाह ने कराया और मैंने सिर्फ कोशिश की है। और आई थिंक बड़ा एक ज़बरदस्त था कि पाकिस्तान मैच जीते और हम फाइनल में पहुँचे, तो इससे बड़ी खुशी वाली बात नहीं हो सकती।
Okay, दूसरी बात यह है कि you've got a lot of people, of players have watched international games in their own home country and then become cricketers. You sadly didn't have that chance. Was there any particular game जिसमें आपने देखा कि अब बस मुझे cricketer बनना है? I mean, I've watched this game, but मैं inspire हो गया.
देखें, हमारे जिस इलाके से मैं हूँ वहाँ से वहाँ पे एक गाँव में सारे लोग इकट्ठे होते थे, एक स्क्रीन लगाते हैं और वो सारे लोग पैसे इकट्ठे। जब मैं छोटा था तो उस टाइम पे मैं इंडिया और पाकिस्तान के जो मैच स्पेशली होते थे तो वो सारे देखते थे। तो घर में भी ये रबड़ बॉल होता था, उससे क्रिकेट खेलते थे सारे। तो एक शौक़ तो वहीं से स्टार्ट हुई थी, फिर सारे मैचेस देख के तो शौक़ वहीं से स्टार्ट हुआ। और फिर ये सोचा नहीं था कि इंटरनेशनल खेलूँगा, हाँ फिर ये ज़रूर सोचा था कि हार्ड बॉल खेलूँगा, और फिर हार्ड बॉल जब स्टार्ट की तो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता स्टेप बाय स्टेप फिर आगे खेल गया।
So basically, my first question to him was asking about how he feels about doing so well in this tournament, bagging these early wickets, and he said that it's all thanks to God that he's got this opportunity to do well, and he believes that it was the blessings that he received on the pitch to be able to perform well, and he wants to play crucial roles in getting the side on a winning momentum, and he was very lucky to feel that he had played the winning stroke to get Pakistan into the finals after beating Afghanistan with the 2 final sixes here in Sharjah. My second question to him was about how he got into cricket. Was there any particular game that inspired him? And then he said that in his village, he hails from Lower Dir, where obviously there's no international games, there's no major international stadiums there for him to go and watch the game. The village would come together and put a screen, and they'll collect money to be able to do that. And then especially when it was an India versus Pakistan game, the whole village would get together and watch the game. And then he used to play in his home and said, he fought with his dad, in fact, to say he wants to play cricket professionally. And his dad obviously believed it was not a good profession to get into. And now as a 16-year-old, he made a debut in Australia. And then at the age of 19, he made an international T20 international debut here in Asia Cup. Did so well. And I think he is the man of the situation. But yes, it was such a good conversation that we've had at the event. But Asia Cup is concluded. Cricket fever is over. I know a lot of fans might be disappointed, but Sri Lanka will be continuing their party back home in the country.